Hello and welcome to Vesterheim's Syttende. I am Martha Griesheimer and I coordinate the Syttende event every year at Vesterheim. We're really glad that you can join us for this special program today. We will begin in just a few minutes. In the meantime, it's fun to know where folks are joining from, and I see that some of you are already writing in the chat where you're joining from. We would, if you'd like to say hello, we would enjoy hearing from you. You can just put a note in the chat and say where you're joining from. We'd also invite you to join us in offering heartfelt thanks to our sponsors, Jeff and Marilyn Roverud, for making this program possible today. We are very excited to introduce presenters from Norway to begin our celebration today. Norwegian storyteller Anne Elisebeth Skogen will be sharing her childhood memory through her piece titled Schoolgirl and My Very First May 17th Parade in 1962. She is performing live from the Ryfylkemuseet in Sand, Norway. Later, you will also enjoy a lively performance by Beth and Jon Rotto, who are playing a few traditional tunes at the Bethania Church in Vesterheim's Heritage Park. First, let me introduce the director of the museum in Sand, Anna Erhardt. She has been at the Ryfylkemuseet for 3.5 years, but has worked at different museums in Norway for more than 12 years. Anna is a native of Germany, and I think we can all relate when she says she fell in love with Norway when she attended Folkehøyskole there before graduate school. Anna, would you tell us a bit about the museum?
Yes, of course. And thank you so much for your invitation. It's really nice meeting you, even if it's digital right now. Here in Ryfylkemuseet, the Museum for Ryfylke is this is a regional museum. So we have museum sites in several municipalities that are part of the region that is called Ryfylke. It's in southwest Norway, not that far from Stavanger, which I think most of you will know approximately where that is. And yeah, we are mostly a cultural historical museum, and we have, as I said, several sites with old farms and other buildings. But in the 1990s, we also started a program for integration. That was a time when we had quite a few refugees coming to Norway, and the museum decided that we wanted to be an active participant in this development in society. And since then, we had various events and different things during this program. One of them started in 2014, and we have worked a lot with participation. So we have invited people in to work with us for exhibitions or events. And some of them of those volunteers told us, you know, it's kind of sad. There's a lot of fun stuff happening on Syttende, but only in the daytime. And in the late afternoon and evening, there's nothing happening. Could we have something there? So that was when the museum decided to have an event there where we would invite everybody. The event is called Syttende for alle, so the 17th of May for everybody. And it would usually consist of both a Norwegian having a little talk about different things, and one of those refugees telling something about their home country. We would share food. Sometimes we would have games or different kind of entertainment and activity. Activity and participation is a very important part of this program. And of course, since it is on Syttende, everybody is dressed in their Sunday best, and it's quite common to wear traditional costumes. And a lot of those refugees, though they are very integrated in the Norwegian society, still would wear costumes from their home countries. And I personally love that, because it gives such a wonderful, a little exotic, colorful extra to a celebration, and I think it really is something that helps giving the Syttende Mai celebration a kind of openness and joyfulness that is just wonderful. And of course, most of the Norwegians would wear their bunad, which is the traditional costume for Norwegians. And that is the story that Anne Elisebeth can tell you so much more about. So have fun listening to her. She is really a great talker.
Yes, I'm one of who used my traditional clothes, my bunad, on Syttende Mai. I inherited this bunad 30 years ago from an old cousin of mine. She was 87 years at that time, and she has told me she had been in a wedding and came home late in the night and said to herself, a bit angry. She got in trouble with getting rid of all the silver and said, "Oh, this is the last time I use this bunad." And that night she decided to give it away, the bunad, all the silver and all the accessories. And I got it. She had both embroidered it and sewn it herself. She was a trained tailor. She did that once in the 1950s. She used for the skirt, you can't see that, oh, like that, my skirt, she used the wool and silk material of both. And she used silk for the scarf and the hat and for my apron. But the most common is to use wool, like I have used in my new rope. A bit about my bunad. But now, today, here is silent at the museum. We can't meet in person because of this coronavirus. So I'm going to tell you Syttende Mai story from my childhood and from my hometown, Egersund, south of Stavanger. And this story goes like that. I woke up early in the morning and I knew at once that this was a special day, that something good would happen, but I couldn't remember what. I sat up in the bed and then I saw that my older sister's bed was empty. And then I understood. I knew my older sister had graduated from the middle school some days earlier, and that she would be out celebrating the whole night between the 16th and 17th of May. So this was the morning, 17th of May, Syttende Mai, my first Syttende Mai as a schoolgirl, and my very first time in the children's parade, Syttende Mai. I jumped out of my bed and hurried downstairs to the kitchen. I found my mother there, busy with ironing small flags, and she had also ironed my new light blue Syttende Mai dress. My father was he, I asked. Oh, my mother told me he had already gone downtown to be present when the wreath was laid on the memorial of the war heroes. So I ate my breakfast together with my mother, listening to the traditional national songs in the radio. After, she helped me to dress, combed my hair, put on a big white ribbon. And soon after, I start to walk downtown in my new dress with the flag raised, and together with my school friend, my neighbor. We were going to meet the other school children downtown today. when we came to town, there were a lot of children from all the schools in the area. They had met with their band. And the graduates were there too. Oh, they were big. They who had graduated from the middle school and were about 16 years old were all dressed in green clothes with a green cap. And those who had graduated from the gymnasium and were 19 years old were all dressed in red and had a red cap on their head. They all shout slogans and waved with bamboo poles with red or green ribbon on. We all were led along into a long Syttende parade. The police helped with the organizing. At 10 o'clock, we heard the drums and the parade started to march on 3 rows. We had practiced marching in step with the music for several days out in the schoolyard with the flag raised. We had also practiced the National Anthem, and we had learned about the very first Syttende, when Norway got its constitution. We had learned that in January 1814, the Napoleonic Wars finally ended out in Europe, and Norway became free from the Danish that had ruled over us for 400 years. We called that the 400 years dark night. It was over. And men from all over Norway had been elected to be member of a national assembly at Eidsvoll in the eastern part of Norway. They were working for several months, and at 17 May 1814, they'd finished the work, and we have got our own constitution. Since that, we have marked that day, we learned. We also had learned about a man called Henrik Wergeland. He was a young man that started to celebrate the National Day with a children's parade. Even if it was 17 years since the Second World War ended, we also had learned that during that war, people could not celebrate Syttende. But some young people went out deep into the wood, and there they were singing the National Anthem. And some also put on red, blue, and white stockings under their skirts and trousers and went out for a walk. But most people didn't dare to celebrate in those days. But we were free and we could celebrate, and we did. Up to this day, I had celebrated together with my parents. We used to go downtown to grandmother's house. My grandmother was so old, so she couldn't go out in the street, but we could sit together with her on her balcony and look at the parade that passed her house. My older sister and some cousins used to look up at us and wave and shout hooray. But not this year. I was not sitting on the balcony this year, 1962. I was member of the parade myself. I told you, we started to march. And we marched through the narrow streets of Egersund. And there were people along both sides of the route. Old people, small children, and adult people. They were looking at us, smiling, waving, and listening to our song. After time, we passed the prison. I could see up on the wall that the windows were opened, but we couldn't see anyone inside. But we knew they were listening to our song from inside. We continued through the narrow streets, and all over there were a lot of people. I had never seen so many people at one time before. I didn't know there were so many people in my hometown. We approached grandmother's house. I looked up on the balcony. Yes, I could see her, but not clearly. I could see the white scarf on her head. A grandmother always was wearing a white scarf with blue dots. Her cheek was so thin, but her eyes so blue and so kind, the bluest and kindest in the whole world. We came closer. I could see her clearly now. My father and mother were there too, and they helped her to stand. And she lifted her hand gently and started waving and waved down to me. And I looked up and waved. I'll never forget that moment when old grandmother waved to me from her balcony. Grandmother was so old, you know. She was 90 years old, soon 91. But when she was young, then she had married a widower, much older than her. And at once she became mother for his 9 children. The smallest one was just a little baby. And the oldest one was 19 years old. And grandmother, herself was just 23. And at the same time, she started to give birth to her own children. Grandmother gave birth to 11 children, 20 in all. My father was number 18, and I was the very youngest of all grandmother's grandchildren. I knew she loved me overall, the last one. But what I didn't know at that time was that this was grandmother's last Syttende Mai. She died 2 months later. But I didn't know that at that time. So the Syttende Mai parade passed our house, and soon we came close to the hospital. Nurses and doctors and patients were standing outside. They were waving and smiling and listening to our songs. But through the window, we could see pale face, serious, but they too were waving to us. We made sure to sing when we passed the hospital. The Syttende Mai parade ended by the church, and the church was filled up by school children and their teachers, our teachers. Our old white church, big, was built of wood, but like a cross, with an open space in the middle. There were a main floor, and there were second floors of gallery. And my class got place on the first floor of gallery, the second floor, close to the open space, like a corner. I was sitting in a corner, and I could see over all in the church. I could see down to the main floor, in all direction. I could see around me to the second floor, and I could see up to the third floor, in all direction. And in that direction, up on the third floor, I could see the organ. And in that direction, I could see the altarpiece. And just across the open space on the wall, I could see the priest on the pulpit. In the middle of the sermon, we all had to raise. And Dan started the organ to play the National Anthem. We were listening serious for one verse. And then we started to sing, and we were singing loudly. We had practice for a long time, this anthem. And the song filled the church from the main floor and up to the ceiling. I had never experienced something like that. And not what happened after, because then the priest said, please show your flag. And we lifted our flag and started to wave. And I knew at once that this picture of all this flag and on the main floor, up all the walls to the ceiling, this picture would never be erased from my memory. After the sermon, it was a time to buy ice cream and look at different competitions. Excuse me. Competitions like climbing in a tall mast to reach a prize or gift. I was not used to have much money, but this day I had. So I bought a really big ice cream, bigger than I ever had had. It was a soft ice. Oh, it tasted so good. I ate and ate and ate and ate and ate, and I became full. I couldn't eat anymore. But still, the ice cream was big. What should I do? I couldn't throw away an ice cream. That was impossible. There were just one thing to do with that. Eat more. Oh, I felt sick. I sat down on a staircase of stone, yes, together with my school friend that also had bought a too big of an ice cream. And there we were sitting. The sun was shining and warming. The ice was melting, flowed over our hands and started dripping. Oh, how would this end? Luckily, my oldest sister saw us and came over, took our ice cream and disappeared around the corner. When she came back, she took our hands and followed us to grandmother's house. My mother and father were there still. And now it was time to rest before the next parade, the Falk Parade. I think we fall asleep among all the pillows in grandma's sofa. But late in the afternoon, it was time to go out in the street again, this time together with my mother and father, and look at the Falk Parade. Oh, there were a lot of bands. They were playing so wonderful. And there were a lot of organizations with their pastors. But the highlight was the graduates. Now they were dressed in different costumes, and they had prams and homemade cars, and they also had pastors that told the adult serious thing that we children did not understand. But it was so funny to look at them. After, it was time to gather at the main square because it was time for the speeches. The bus of the green and the bus of the red graduates had their speech first, and the adult laughed a lot. So it was time for the main speech, and the adult became serious listening. So it was time at the end to sing the National Anthem for us children for the second time. And now all the big men with hats took off their hat, put it on the stomach, and they stood like that when we start singing. And I think I also had to stay like this with them. And we were singing the National Anthem, and the song filled the air I don't know how long up. When the program was over, it was time to start walking home. That would take half an hour or 45 minutes. But I was so tired I could barely go, and my feet were so sore I had to hang in my mother and father's hand. The young people continued the celebration, but I didn't know. At home, I fall asleep at once. I laid my head on the pillow, and I didn't recognize when my older sister came tiptoeing into our room in the early morning of the 18th of May. Thank you all for listening.
Tusen tack, Anne Elisebeth, for the delightful remembrance of your first Syttende parade. I can imagine that some of our audience members may now be recalling their own similar experiences. Wonderful. It was also inspiring to hear Anna Erhardt talk about the Syttende for Alla event that you hold each year for the community in Sand. This sounds like a warm and welcoming event, very much in the spirit of hope for the future that is celebrated on this day. The next featured performers for our celebration are local Decorah musicians Beth and Jon Rotto. They are founding members of the old-time dance band Footnotes, who have been providing music for enthusiastic dancers in and around Decorah, Iowa for over 30 years. Before we hand it over to Beth and Jon, my colleague Diane Brundike, Vesterheim's Director of Development, has some information about a special Syttende challenge to support the Vesterheim Annual Fund. Diane?
Today we celebrate Syttende, Constitution Day in Norway. On May 17, 1814, Norway ratified its constitution. And every year on this day, we celebrate freedom wherever it occurs. Our sponsors for today's festivities, Jeff and Marilyn Roverud, love Syttende. For over 20 years, the Roveruds have sponsored Syttende activities at Vesterheim, including the children's parades, Nordic dancing, and music. But this is a different year. As we continue to follow the protocols to help bring an end to this pandemic, we aren't able to celebrate together this year. So, our sponsors have a challenge for you, the 1814 Challenge. The Roveruds have stepped up with $1,814 in matching funds, an amount significant to the first Syttende. Until midnight tonight, every gift given to the Vesterheim Annual Fund will be matched dollar for dollar, up to a total of $1,814 by the Roveruds. We hope that you will take advantage of the 1814 Challenge and this chance to double your gift and lend your support to Vesterheim's important mission. Every single dollar makes a difference. To give, call us at 563-382-9681 or give securely online at vesterheim.org/donate. Magatak for your generosity today, and enjoy your Syttende.
Hello and welcome to the celebration of Syttende. This is Beth Rotto, I'm Jon, and we're going to play a few tunes here in the Bethania Church, which is always a pleasure to do because the acoustics are nice and it fills with sound so easily. So, Beth, what are we going to be playing?
Yeah, we're going to be playing some tunes from both Norway and Norwegian-American tune.
So we're happy to be here and happy that you're watching us, listening.
We're going to play you a tune that comes from Norway. It comes from the Trøndelag area, which is an area that one branch of my family came from, and it's called Trekk i Velden. We'd like to play for you Norwegian Rhinelander, which is schottish type dance, is what we do schottish to here. And we learned this from friends in Wisconsin. We're going to play a Norwegian-American waltz for you. It's called Randi Severson's Waltz. It's popular in the Midwest. People have been sharing this tune for a number of years, but we've just recently started playing it. Randi Severson was from the Hallingdal area, and she was born in 1877. That's what I know.
Do I lead in this?
No? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you, Beth and Jon. That was just wonderful. I was dancing in my chair. As Diane mentioned earlier, Syttende, May 17th, is Norway's Constitution Day. It celebrates the ratification of Norway's constitution in 1814, just a few decades after the American nation achieved independence from England. The patriots of Norway were inspired by the American story because their own country had been ruled by Denmark for 400 years. The 1814 Constitution asserted Norway's aspiration for independence, but full nationhood did not come until 1905. As you have heard, May 17th is the most patriotic day of the year for Norwegians, who celebrate it with parades, flags, and commemorations of culture and history. As we have heard, there is a strong focus on youth, and it is the perfect occasion for wearing a bunad if you have one. We also understand that children can have all the ice cream they want on this day. This is the 24th annual celebration of Syttende at Vesterheim. As a heritage organization with strong ties to Norway, Vesterheim is committed to celebrating the spirit of Syttende each year. Under normal circumstances, we have a children's parade through the streets of Decorah, Iowa, and performances by the Nordic dancers, who are community ambassadors for the Norwegian heritage of the area. There is always free admission to the museum on May 17th. Although we wish we could be together in person this year, isn't it amazing the wonderful performance we have enjoyed today from storyteller Anne Elisebeth Skogen and musicians Beth and Jon Rotto? Tusen takk, alle sammen. We are glad you have chosen to celebrate with us today. We hope that the program has brightened your day and inspired you to remember your own Syttende experiences, whether in your childhood, while traveling in Norway, or in Norwegian-American neighborhoods or communities where you live. We'll leave you with an image of Vesterheim Norwegian-American Museum on a recent Syttende and a reminder that your word-of-mouth promotion is very valuable to us. If you have enjoyed yourself today, please tell everyone you know about Vesterheim. We hope that you'll join us again soon for a visit, either virtually or in person. Enjoy the rest of your Syttende, wherever you are. Ha det. Goodbye.